Do you need flared handlebars on your road bike? They've been widely adopted in the gravel market because they give you greater control over technical terrain and you can squish a bag in between the drops that bit easier. But are we missing a trick not riding them on a road bike? Today, I'm going to tell you all about it. Before we get into it though, we should really talk about what effect handlebars have on our aerodynamic efficiency as riders. You see, I'm not talking about aero bars here, ones which have prioritized being easy to go through the air with their thick, flat tops. No, I'm talking about round, flared bars, and surprisingly, they don't actually have that big an impact on our CDA. That's our coefficient of aerodynamic drag. For a rider in a fairly average position on a bike, so not too aggressive, not too relaxed, 85% of aerodynamic drag is going to come from that rider, with only 15% coming from the bike itself. So it goes without saying that really the best way to optimize any aerodynamic position on the bike is to optimize the rider's position, and the handlebar is the first port of call when you want to do that. It's pretty well adopted now that the aero hood's position is the most aerodynamic for riding on the road. Now this position is the one where you sit holding onto the hoods here, like in this position, with your arms at 90 degrees to where you're holding on to the bars. And this lowers your frontal section that's been hit by the wind and allows your forearm to come in line behind your wrist. You'll see racers doing this more now at races rather than sitting straight on the drops because it gives them that lower frontal area to be impacted by the oncoming wind. Now, a narrower handlebar can reduce your CDA even further. And where once 42 centimeter bars were common, you now see 38 centimeter bars and 36 centimeter bars in the pro peloton as those racers try and reduce their frontal area and their CDA that bit more. But of course, it would be amiss to not mention that bar width obviously plays a massive part in how a bike handles. The narrower your handlebar, the twitchier the bike is going to feel, and that's because a handlebar is simply a lever through which you apply pressure to turn the bike. And if you apply pressure through a narrower space, it's going to happen that bit quicker. Now, it is possible to adapt to twitchy steering, but not all riders are going to want to do that. It's very common that riders want to ride a nice stable bike, and only the pros are going to want the fastest handling possible. So why am I talking about all of this? Well, that's exactly where flared handlebars come in. The principle is you get the narrower top section so you can sit on the hoods in a nice aerodynamic position, but then the flare out at the drops puts you in that nice controlling position for descending. Now, it's worth mentioning that a standard flared gravel bar isn't gonna cut the mustard here because they're simply too wide to put you in an aerodynamic position. You don't really get gravel handlebars narrower than a 44 or a 42, whereas on the road you're really looking for a 40 or a 38 to make the most of that aerodynamic position. Now, for demonstration purposes, I've equipped this bike with the Salsa cowbell bars, which are 38 centimeters wide hood to hood, but then have 12 degrees of flare. And hopefully you can see from the camera angle, you can see that coming out at the back. Now, one thing to consider with flared bars is the reach and drop and how that might affect your position, because some riders do like to ride with handlebars which have a bigger drop to the drops than these shallow ones do here. So bear that in mind. Now, the downside is it's not exactly like the road market is teeming with flared handlebar options available for people to buy. There are a few notable options, including MV's SES Aero handlebar that measures 35 centimeters at the hood, which is seriously narrow, but flares out to 40 centimeters down on the drops, giving the rider the best of both worlds. A more avant-garde option would be the Spico ABB, which stands for Aero Breakaway Bar. And this takes the principle of flared bars to its logical conclusion, which is it builds in an armrest to make sitting in that aero hoods position that bit easier. And the hoods are just 32 centimeters wide, flaring out to 37 centimeters in the drops. Now, you may have seen these bars used in the pro peloton because they were designed in collaboration with and then used by Jan Willem van Schip. And astonishingly, the UCI actually haven't banned them yet. They're still UCI legal, but at 1,500 euros, we wouldn't expect take-up to happen that quickly. Of course, there are those that argue that flared bars on the road are not the way to go, and Zip are one of these. They say that flared bars can mess with the brake lever alignment, which is supposed to be in a vertical plane, and you can see here that the brake lever is not on that plane. It does flare out in the same way that the drops do. They also say that having your hands in that position on the hoods is more likely to cause injury, and it's not going to be for all riders who might try and force themselves to ride in that position and suffer from discomfort. That's not to say that Zipp haven't explored down this route at all, and they have, but they called it outsweep rather than flare. And this is a bit different because the hoods and the brake levers sit in a vertical alignment, and instead the drops at the end sweep outwards to give a rider a bit more of a controlling position. And Zipp has done lots of testing around this, and they've landed on 5 degrees of flare and 11 degrees of outsweep being the optimum orientation of relationship between the drop and the hood before the ergonomics of the handlebars start getting messed up. So, are flared handlebars worth it for your road bike? Well, if you're trying to optimize your aerodynamic position without really affecting the handling of your bike, they could be worthy of your consideration. However, bear in mind there aren't that many options to buy right now, so you could be short-suited in the exact spec you're looking for. However, we would expect this trend to increase as the lines are blurred between the road cycling world and the all-road gravel world, as we've seen pretty much in every other part of the bike. So really, it's a watch this space type of debate. So there you go, a little introduction to the world of flared handlebars on the road. If you have enjoyed this video, do give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the Cycling Weekly channel. And if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments section below. Now I'll be back soon with some more great tech content, and I'll see you then.
Shall I stop the cameras, or are you going to be ready to go?
I'm gonna go. Shut your mouth, I'm gonna go. Am I?
Or are you, or not?
Yeah!
See, this is what takes up space on the server.
No, pause it then. Can't work in these conditions.